inspiration for all of us by making her dreams a reality.
You guys all got that email about bringing your speakers, because we're going for a 5-mile run on this together. Thank you, Bernice, and everybody at the Philadelphia Alliance for this honor. It's a great privilege to be here today. I don't live in Philly anymore, I live in DC, so I make it up here about once a month or so. And thank you all for the nice words this morning as well. What I would like to do is just share a little bit of this story of Back on My Feet with you. This is my full-time job now, as well as 24 other people, but it's much, much more than that for me. It is my mission, my purpose, and my great honor to do what I do. But before I do that, I think that there are two of our members back there still. Are Kenny and Claudel still here? If you guys can stand up for a second. Claudel have been with us for a while. Claudel actually writes for the paper that you all received today. Both have run half marathons, 10-mile races. I can still beat both of you, but you're doing pretty well. Kenny's now moved out of the facility, and I know that Claudel is on his way to permanent housing in the next month or so, so congratulations. So I grew up in Bismarck, North Dakota, like many of you, I'm sure. But I had a fantastic childhood as a kid. I have really great memories about riding my bike till midnight. There's not a lot to worry about back in Bismarck. And I thought that my parents had a really good marriage. You know, we went to the cabin on the weekends. Everything was just kind of perfect growing up. And I had a really fantastic relationship with my dad, who is still an athlete, but was an athlete in high school and college. And I was a big tomboy, so we would play basketball for hours and play catch for hours. And we just had a really special relationship. And my dad is just someone who I get very emotionally charged about. He's like my person. He's very sarcastic, witty, the nicest guy you're ever gonna meet, charismatic, but a little rough around the edges. He's a very simple person, doesn't need a lot in his life. And I remember being 12 years old and having this box of what I thought my life was going to look like when I got big. And inside my box was this big white house with this white picket fence and green shutters, a picture of this very tall, very dark, very handsome man who was going to be my husband. I was going to have 2 kids, I was going to have this great job, and that's what my life was going to be like, and I had no reason to think that things weren't going to work out that way. And when I was 16, I got a pretty hard dose of reality of everything that I thought to be so true and honest about my family and my parents' marriage, really turned out not to be. So I was sitting home summer before my sophomore year in high school. Tom was talking about the 80s, and I said, I was just a preschooler then. But I was sitting home in our basement. My dad came home from work a little bit early and asked if me and my younger brother and older sister could leave for a couple hours so we could talk to our mom. And that was weird. He's never done anything like that before, so we all knew something was up. But we left, and I came back, and my mom wasn't there. My dad was sitting on the couch and looking somber and scared, and not at all like this superhero dad that I know. I sat next to him, and I asked him what's going on, and that's the day I learned that my dad had a gambling addiction that he'd been struggling with for the past couple years of his life, and it had gotten to a point that he couldn't continue anymore. My dad owed thousands and thousands of dollars to a few people who wanted their money, and my life all of a sudden felt like a movie where there's people looking for my dad. And unfortunately, that wasn't my dad's first introduction to addiction. He went through drug and alcohol recovery when I was really young. I've never seen my dad drink or do drugs, but my mom has. And she was on the receiving end of what comes with addiction for the most part, which is deception and lying and cheating and irresponsibility, which were things I didn't associate with my father, but were things that my mom and him had been struggling with behind closed doors for years. So that day my mom kicked my dad out, and I lost it. I could not begin to comprehend my mom's decisions. I tell you what, if you all have 16-year-old daughters, you did not want me as a 16-year-old. I resented my mom for the next 3 years of my teenage career, and I also spent those 3 years trying to fix my dad. My dad, who is my person, who I just wanted to help and save. It's really hard, as I've learned no matter what age you are, to love somebody who's an addict. You just want to help them, and my dad wasn't ready to be helped, and nothing I could do would fix him. So for me, running was my salvation. It was something that I did that gave me a sense of self. It helped to identify, I found myself in running. Everything that it took to be a good runner were things I started to like about myself. No one was telling me what to do. I determined how far, how long, how hard, and I just got consumed by the life lessons that surround the sport about taking things one step at a time, knowing that you can't get to mile 10 without doing the first 9 in between, and that sometimes you got to be on hard roads in life, and that if you're on those roads long enough, that you just got to hope that they turn into good roads. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go get everything that's in my box, almost to overcompensate for the fact that I had this red mark on my life now that I had to almost tuck behind, and I was almost embarrassed by it. So I went to college, I graduated early, I went to grad school, got a great job, was going a million miles a minute, got a job offer in Philly, did not want to move to Philly. It was not in my 10-year plan to be here. But I got a really good job offer with the Committee of 70, which some of you may know, working with Zach Stahlberg, who's a great guy. And moved up here for 2 years and found myself completely lost. I was so lonely. I spent a lot of time by myself in those 2 years of my life, from 24 to 26, trying to figure out who I was. I didn't have a lot of purpose in my life. I didn't have a lot of value. And I didn't want these things in my box anymore. And I couldn't figure out what I wanted. I think everybody goes through that at some point in your life when you wonder what you're here for and what your purpose is and what your mission is. And I was convinced mine was not in Philly. So I quit my job, and I was going to move to New York or Chicago or Europe or someplace else. And I actually got approached by Comcast to go work with them and do a lot of traveling in their government affairs department. I was pretty certain my mission was not at Comcast either. However, I started interviewing, and it seemed like a really good opportunity. I would be traveling a lot, and I thought maybe by doing this I'll figure out who I am. So, as Bernie said, 5:30 in the morning you could usually find me running. That had been the one thing in my life for the past 10 years that had remained stable for me, something that I always depended on. I always felt good when I ran. I became a marathoner at this point. So when I lived in Philly, I lived at 12th and Hamilton. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's between Vine and Spring Garden. And 5 years ago or so, 3.5 I guess now, wasn't the greatest neighborhood. There's not a lot up there. It's pretty desolate. But on the corner of 12th and Vine, which is not even a half a mile from my place, there is Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission that I had passed numerous times on my way to work. But for whatever reason, in May of 2007, I started to notice a group of these guys standing outside on the corner, and I began to wave at them. And they waved back at me, and then they got to know my name, and for a couple of weeks, we just had this short conversation. These guys were such smart asses, you know. They would ask me, you know, do all you ever do all day is run? And I would ask them, do all you ever do is stand on that corner? And so it was really easy for me to talk to these guys like that for the sole purpose of that they reminded me of my dad. And my dad and I had that sarcastic, witty rapport back and forth. And for whatever reason, one day and later that month, there was a streetlight right there, and I stopped and looked at these guys and thought, what am I doing? Here I am, selfishly moving my life forward, physically, of course, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and I'm leaving them in the exact same spot. Running doesn't discriminate. Doesn't matter if you're white, black, rich, poor, homeless, or not. It can make you feel like you can fly and make you find a positive identity within the sport, and I wanted to share that with them. So I called the homeless shelter and told him my brilliant idea, and he was like, there's no way this is going to work. These guys do not want to run. And I said, well, if you can just ask them, I will take care of everything else. I'll get the shoes, I'll get the clothes, I will be there. Just ask them. So around the same time, so he did that, and a week or so later, I get an email from him with the names of 9 guys and their shoe sizes. And I said, great, you know, I'll be up there, and whatever day I said, a week or so later, and I will bring shoes and clothes, and we'll have an orientation. And I get a call from Comcast around the same time offering me this great job, more money than any 26-year-old should have. And I took it. I took it because I was too afraid not to. And I asked for 5 weeks to see if I couldn't get this little running club thing started, that it would work without me when I wasn't going to be able to be around. Is it okay?